do it live.
Hey everybody, welcome to a very special edition of the Cinematic Lounge. It's special because we're going to talk about the birthday gift that Maria gifted me for my birthday.
Yes.
Why don't you tell everybody what you did?
So I gifted you a chance to do a movie review with two of your favorite movie reviewers. Show called Breakfast All Day with Christy and Alonso.
Right. Christy Lemire and Alonso Duralde. I have been watching them for years. They used to do a show called What the Flick. And I think in COVID, they switched over, and now the two of them have been doing Breakfast All Day for a few years. And it's a review show that when Maria and I go see a movie in the movie theater, whoever isn't driving home opens up their show on YouTube and watches the review of the movie we just watched because we kind of like their takes. And what they do is they allow you to come on the show and bring a movie that you want to talk about. And the movie I selected is 2013's The Counselor, directed by Ridley Scott, which, as you'll see in the video that they did with me, that it's a universally hated film. And I seem to be the only one in the world that likes it. We reviewed it on the Yippee-Ki-Yay Mother podcast show. Not review, we talked about it on the Yippee-Ki-Yay podcast show, and everybody there hated it. It's a movie that I really, really quite enjoy, and I don't understand the hate. And they had done it on What the Flick, but these two in particular did not review it. One of their other people did. So they had to watch the movie to do the review with me. And anybody that's familiar, and I think it's on our wheel, with the movie called Galaxy Quest. You haven't seen it.
No, I haven't seen it.
Okay, but there's a character in there named Guy, and anybody that's seen the movie knows what I'm talking about. I was like Guy. I was just happy to be on their show. And you're going to see that because I'm smiling like a crazy person, and I had the greatest time. And what you're not going to see, because all they do is they record the review, but there was about a 10-minute preamble where I got to talk to them. And they were very gracious and made me feel really at ease and at home. And I really did feel like I was part of the team. And I might even do it again because I had so much fun. So anyway, we're going to take a look at it, and then we'll come back and you can give us your thoughts, okay?
Okay.
So here you go.
Ralph Quattrucci, welcome to Table for One. We are delighted to have you here. We are delighted to be a part of your birthday celebration all year long. We love when folks reach out to us with anniversary or birthday or whatever it is, Christmas, and we love being a part of those events. We're always honored. So thank you to your lovely wife for asking, and thank you to you for being here. We're really happy to meet you.
Well, thank you. I'm happy to meet you both. I've been watching you guys forever, so this is a thrill for me. So
sweet. Thank you. You picked a movie that neither of us had seen, and a much maligned movie, and that is Ridley Scott's The Counselor. And I went back and I looked at our What the Flick review, and only Matt reviewed it. I wasn't even there that day, and Matt reviewed it. So I don't know how this slipped through the cracks because it seems like in retrospect it's kind of infamous. But Alonso, will you please tell us about this film?
It did come and leave pretty quickly, as I recall, from American theaters.
That's true.
So this is Ridley Scott directing an original screenplay by Cormac McCarthy. It's not based on one of his novels. He wrote this for the screen. It stars Michael Fassbender as a lawyer known only as the Counselor, and he is about to embark in a very big cocaine deal with club owner Javier Bardem, and the counselor is about to get married to the one innocent person in this entire movie, played by Penelope Cruz. Drug deals, as they are wont to do in movies, go wrong, and this one certainly does. And it may or may not have something to do with the machinations of Bardem's devious tattooed girlfriend, played by Cameron Diaz, who scores the film's most legendarily infamous scene by having carnal knowledge of a Ferrari. Double crosses and backstabbing and lengthy monologues about the nature of greed and evil and women ensue. The Counselor.
Okay, so
Yes.
Ralph, when you emailed me to say that you wanted to review this, you said people hate it. And I don't understand why, and I want to understand this. So why did you want to talk about this of all the movies in all the world?
Exactly. So I told you I had my little video podcast thing, and we would review movies, and we would bring our favorites to the table. And mine, I always bring, is The Counselor, because everybody that I talk to hates this film. And again, I don't understand. I think I'm not a literary person, and I'm very literal, and I like most movies, so I'm kind of an easy mark. But I didn't understand the hate. There was so much hate for this one. And pretentious was the word that kept on being brought up, that it's a pretentious film because of all, like Alonso just said, all the speechifying that goes on in the film, which I absolutely love. And it had all my favorite actors in there, Brad Pitt, of course, and Michael Fassbender, Javier, all those guys, and the fact that Ridley Scott just makes these films in the middle of everything he's doing, and the film looks great. It's acted great. I didn't mind all the talking, and I just didn't understand why people hated it so much. That's why I kind of want some experts to tell me, because most of the reviews from back in the day hated this film.
Yeah.
There are some coming out now retrospectively. They're going, it might be a classic. It could be trash. Your old 8, is it 8 or was it great or am I 8? That stuff you guys do. This is kind of happening. I think it's happening a little bit where people are starting to recognize that maybe it's not as trashy as it was, even though it is. I get it. I still loved it. I just
and you rewatched it this morning before you came and saw
I rewatch it. I'm also a video editor.
Okay. Okay.
I use movies as metronomes when I'm editing, especially if they're talky. So like Zodiac or Michael Clayton. Movies that I know every beat of, I can just I can't edit with music, but I can edit with a film. This is one of them that I like to edit to because of all the speechifying that's going on. And I get that it's, you ask a simple question and Brad Pitt's giving us all these answers about this and that, or everything is the Chekhov's gun. So they mentioned the bolo and they mentioned the snuff film. Everything ends up happening. And I just need to know, is it really trash?
Alonso, is it trash? We like trash around here quite often.
I mean, it is self-consciously trashy. I think, like, you look at Javier Bardem's hair in this movie,
right?
And you're like, okay, they're clearly, they're dipping a foot into this. It's a fine line because, like, for example, I love the movie All About Eve. Does anybody in All About Eve speak like a human being? No. But you wish people talked like that. You wish people were that witty and that, like, packed their dialogue with this many sort of zingers and kind of, oddball poetry even. But I think it's a tough thing to pull off. And I don't know that McCarthy does, because I feel like like you said, there's so much Chekhov's gunning in this movie. And there's so much like, let's stop and talk about the nature of greed, that
truth has no temperature.
Yeah, exactly.
I wrote that down.
Does anybody use the word surety in conversation? No, they don't.
No.
So, and so either this sings for you or it falls flat. And for me, it fell flat. But
wow.
There are movies that people love where I just shake my head and I don't get why. And this one, I'm like, I can see why. I can see if you're on the wavelength of this movie's sort of pulpy philosophy. Yes, it is beautifully shot. And yes, the performances are committed. I won't go as far as to say they're good, but they're committed and they're definitely like leaning into the thing. And it's one of those movies where just the opening credits, you're like, Christ, who isn't in this? Edgar Ramirez pops up and Natalie Dormer and our favorite Hitler, whose name is flying out.
Bruno Gans.
Bruno Gans.
John Leguizamo, the guy from Breaking Bad.
Yes. So, Ruben Blades,
Rosie Perez.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's like, of course, there's a lot of this is an ensemble that is just digging in with knife, fork, and steak sauce. And so, yeah, I get the appeal of it, and I hate the word pretentious as a marker against movies, because I think it's a word that I don't think people understand what it means, and it's kind of a lazy dig at a film that is trying for something and being ambitious. This movie's ambitious as all hell.
Yeah.
I think Cormac McCarthy is weird about vaginas, and I think that he is maybe a novelist who is not quite attuned to like how screenwriting works. And like Manolo Dargis says, he's never read a screenwriting manual and the movie is the better for it. So there's again an appeal to be found in that, but it didn't work for me.
Wow.
Yeah, the whole way I was watching this, I'm like, I bet this would work so much better on the printed page, right? And when you look at adaptations of Cormac McCarthy's work, like No Country for Old Men, like the Coens take a lot of that language, but they make it palatable to the ear. And I think like this is like unfiltered Cormac McCarthy. And so a lot of it quite frequently clangs like that whole opening sequence with Michael Fassbender and Penelope Cruz under the covers, like rather than being like rapturous and sexy, it just was so distracting when he says things to her like, God, you're a sexy woman. Tell me something sexy. I'm like,
are we having phone sex now? Is this phone sex?
Right.
And
It's
even
so
the scene you're talking about, the car scene, at least they made it kind of gross. At least the reaction was, oh my God, that was disgusting seeing what the way he described it as the fish in the tank.
Yeah.
At least I felt like, okay, they're acknowledging that, okay, this looks ridiculous, and it should, because it is ridiculous. And all that is, again, I still, I'm not pretentious, I guess, and I'm very literal, like I said. So I just thought, okay, they're just talking. Yes, and some other reviewers said the same thing. When you read the page, it seemed like it worked, but when it went on the screen,
and the Coens have a singular ability to make dialogue like that work.
Yeah.
I always think of Nicolas Cage in Raising Arizona saying, her insides were a rocky place where my seed could find no purchase. Like, that's a line the Coen brothers know how to sell. And maybe some of these monologues they could have made work, but Ridley Scott is not that guy.
Yeah.
Right. Llewellyn, where'd you get the pistol? At the Getting Place. I think about that. I think about also like a movie like Brick, right? Like Ryan Johnson's Brick has incredibly heightened stylized language, film noir, pulpy detective language in a high school.
Yeah.
And people like Joseph Gordon-Levitt are delivering it. And there's like an understatement to that world that almost makes it feel real. Whereas here, like everything is heightened and there's such bravado and such swagger. Like I felt like while I was watching this that everyone was in a bad mood while they were making it. Like Ridley Scott was in a bad mood because like there's swagger, and I'm fine with unlikable characters if they're compelling, but except for Penelope Cruz, who gets nothing to do, no one to play, they're all just horrible in ways that are repulsive. And so I had a hard time getting on its wavelength for that reason as well. Although I did kind of enjoy Cameron Diaz playing against type as this like vava-voomy, like sociopathic vixen. And she gets to wear all these like really slinky clothes. Like the clothes are great. Jan T. Yates did the costume design. Darius Bowlesby shot it. As you mentioned, it looks great. Daniel Pemberton, who did the Spider-Verse score, did the score. And so like it's an interesting combination of people coming together here to make this film that does not work. And I was just so distracted by like Brad Pitt's hair the whole time. Like, like everyone's in their own pulpy movie and it never quite gels, and it's constantly drawing attention to itself.
It does kind of remind me of those sort of like 90s immediate post Tarantino like Pulp Fiction knockoffs where like everybody thought, oh, we'll just, we'll use a lot of very like stylized dialogue and we'll show a lot of LA and we'll, like mutter some coldly funny aphorisms and we'll have a movie, and this one, it's beyond the, not only are they not all, is no one likable except for Penelope Cruz, like they could all die in an explosion or be arrested and I wouldn't care. I wasn't so that does sort of take a little layer of suspense off, because I'm like waiting to see who's going to be the last one standing, and you pretty much know it's going to be Cameron Diaz,
Yeah.
Well, they set that up very early. There was no mystery about her. And I didn't like, that's the one performance that I was like, ugh. I just felt like
really?
she was so articulate. It was so mannered. I don't know. Again, I like the movie, so I shouldn't be a judge of, you can't judge me for anything. Do you ever see Things to Do in Denver When You're Dead? That one?
No, but I always think of that as being an example of the bad post-Pulp Fiction movie.
And that one didn't get nearly as vilified as this one does, and still does.
Because there were a lot of them, I think, at the time. So it was hard to like, because you also had Lucky Number Slevin and Amongst Friends and all those other stupid movies to deal with. And this one, I think, was reeking with pedigree, obviously. I mean, not just the cast, not just Ridley Scott, but like Cormac McCarthy's first original screenplay. Ooh,
when you saw the trailers and you saw the info coming out about it, it's like it's a no-brainer. This thing's going to be a huge hit.
Yeah.
And then it just didn't.
I'm sure at some point they thought, ooh, this is going to have like Oscar buzz or something,
Right,
but
right.
that didn't last. But it would be interesting to do like a series of films written by novelists, because I think there's something about those two media that don't necessarily cross over smoothly, although some have pulled it off. Like I think there's Douglas Copeland wrote a movie called Everything's Gone Green that I like quite a bit.
Okay.
This one kind of reminded me of like Norman Mailer's Tough Guys Don't Dance, where you're just like, did you think about how that would sound coming out of someone's mouth when you wrote it down?
I mean, people are watching this while they're shooting, right? They're watching what they're doing. Are they just all in their own navel, like you're saying? And there's like, how does it happen?
Maybe it's hard to see when you're in the middle of it, right?
Yeah.
And you sign on to a thing like, well, of course, Javier Bardem and Penelope Cruz are married at this point.
Right.
And of course, like, why not want to work with Ridley Scott and Michael Fassbender, who was very hot at this point? I think Shame had happened already at this point, right?
Yeah. And I think also, like, with any script, but especially with something like this one, you're thinking, well, this is just a sliver of it. There's no way I can get a feel for what the whole thing is like. And so even though this might seem a little much or a little stylized, it's McCarthy. And again, I'm sure a lot of them kept thinking about No Country for Old Men and how that dialogue works in that context.
In
and so
Texas.
surely they're doing the same thing here,
Mm-hmm.
Did you guys watch the extended version or the theatrical?
I watched the shorter version, the normal version. What did you watch,
It's
Alonso?
about 2 hours and 15, the extended.
Oh, then I guess I watched the shorter one. That's what was on Apple TV.
The Diamond, Bruno Gans?
Uh-huh.
He has a whole diatribe about Jewish and countries and stuff. Yeah, it gets a little pretentious, I think. I mean, it really goes
does
up.
the extra stuff help? Does it pad it out in ways
not
that
really.
benefit it?
No.
Okay.
No. And actually, as I'm watching it this morning, I knew that one was extra, but I wasn't sure about the other extra stuff.
Huh.
So, I mean, I guess that's good or bad, but
we still have to go back and watch The Long Napoleon. We haven't done that yet either.
there's a
Do
long
we, though?
Napoleon.
It's funny, though, because when Napoleon came out, the first one was like 2 hours or 40 minutes long. And we heard that the extended cut was 4 hours.
Yeah.
But I don't think it ended up being that long.
No, it's not. It's like a little over 3, I think. So,
But he likes those.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And I mean, the director's cut of, Kingdom of Heaven is great and much better than the theatrical. But it's funny, when Napoleon came out, people were like clamoring for us to talk about the director's cut. And by the time the director's cut came out, like nobody cared anymore. Nobody was even thinking about Napoleon. So
Yeah. There is some of the, I'm sorry, I was going to say real fast. There is some of like the signature kind of like trashy Ridley Scott swagger in here that we also see in a movie like House of Gucci. And like what Gaga's doing in House of Gucci is some of the most interesting stuff in the movie. So part of me likes that instinct. And I think Cameron Diaz here embodies that instinct where it's just knowingly showy, flashy trash and like having a good time with it. But I think the other pieces don't necessarily gel around it. So that didn't work.
Well, I think one complaint I heard was they didn't like the clothes everybody was wearing, or
I love the
they
clothes.
didn't. It's like, okay. And the one review I watched, and it was interesting. This is when his brother killed himself as well. Tony
during
Scott.
the shoot, right?
During the shoot,
yeah.
which might add to some of what you were saying, which is people might have just been in a bad mood. Who knows? But also that he was channeling his brother a little bit in some of the shooting he did in this. Tony Scott's a little more, True Romance and all that stuff is a little more pulpy normally, but not as heightened as his stuff is. And this one's a little more, less of the heightened stuff that Ridley Scott is known for and more just the pulpy stuff. And I thought it looked great. I know, Chrissy, you're all into the cinematographers all the time. So I thought this one looked great.
Yeah. There's a sheen to it. It makes sense in this trashy world.
His whole persona, the way he tucked his shirts in and the white shoes, I just thought he was just fun to watch. And
I read that his hair is inspired by Brian Grazer's hair.
I can see
read that too.
That makes sense. So
yeah, Tony Scott died.
I'm the only one in my group that thinks this film is any good. It sounds like I'm the only one in a lot of places that thinks this film is any good. But
that's great. That's great. Stick to that. Stick to your guns. If you love something, don't, no reason to apologize for it. So
yeah, I do not.
Okay, well, cool. Well, then since you love it, what number would you give it? We give numbers here at Table for One. So from 1 to 10,
I don't know how you guys do that math so quickly.
It's Alonso does.
Really?
Not me.
You're going to ask me this. I'm going to give it an 8.
Okay. Alonso.
Okay.
I'm like a 5.2. I mean, there's a lot of the technical stuff is there, and everyone is committed to this. I just don't know that it was worth committing to.
The cameras in the right place and they were in focus, so that gets some points.
Yes, I mean,
okay.
that does, because you can't take that for granted.
No.
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to say a 4 because while there was style to it, and it's a great cast and all that, and there are some individual moments that have some suspense, like the pacing just felt really erratic to me. I am not a film editor, so I leave that to you to be the expert on that, but it just felt off to me always, and the tone just felt off to me always. And I think Michael Fassbender's terrible in it. The scene where he breaks down in the hotel room when he gets the Olav video.
Well,
is
I mean,
just bad.
That's a snuff film he just got. Of course he's going to be upset.
Also, like, justice for Penelope Cruz. How do you make Penelope Cruz boring? Like, that in itself is a feat.
Well, you add to that she was pregnant while she did this too, which is another weirdness when she gets knocked. I mean, I know it's not her probably, but the character gets knocked down.
Acting.
Yeah, well, there's scenes that pop in and out of this that the guy that he meets at the polo grounds, or when the guy goes and buys the dog food,
the Toby
motorcycle
Kebbell
guy, Tony, that guy, then the motorcycle guy, that whole thing with the dog food.
By the way, Christy, that's Ole Munch from Fargo again, as the wire guy. But like when they're setting that up, I'm like, oh, we're not doing that. Oh, we're doing that. Yeah. Okay. And this movie is a lot of that. We're a 5.7 as our average here.
Okay.
Did you do that in your head, or you just calculate that? How do you do that so quick?
It's
so
my
good.
crazy powers.
Andy can write. He can write and do math. Most of us can do one or the other, but Alonso can do both. Ralph,
awesome.
We were delighted to meet you and chat with you.
Thank
you for picking out an infamous movie. It's always fun to watch a movie we've never seen before. So thank you for helping us fill in our filmography, and have a great rest of the day.
Well, it's nice to know 2 more people don't like it as well. So that's I'll keep my average up.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thanks, guys. Well, what'd you think?
I loved it.
Yeah.
You looked adorable. You were so happy.
I mean, I was like I said, smiling like a crazy person.
You were. It was nice. It was nice to see. But they were very nice to you.
Yeah.
Like, they seemed like they wanted to know your opinion. They wanted to talk to you. Like, they treated you like an equal, not like, they didn't patronize in any way,
Absolutely.
which I thought was wonderful.
There was no, and they both hated the movie, which I also found interesting. But you even heard her say, look, you should love it. If you love it, scream all over the place. Yeah. That's your choice, and that's fine. Very gracious. Mm-hmm. And I think they rated it a little too low. I think retroactively this film is going to come back and be a huge hit again. I think it's one of those films that was looked at as crap, and it's going to be a treasure pretty soon, I think. So anyway, but I just want to say they were fantastic. I appreciate it. Thank you for the gift. It was probably one of my favorites, as you saw my face in there. I had a great time, and I hope to do it again. They were really fantastic. So thank you for the gift, and I thank them for allowing me to do that. So thank you.
You're welcome, and happy birthday.
Thank you very much.